I'm back. I know this gimmick is so stupid, but it keeps me entertained. So this time we're talking about types. So, this is based on the doubt that, that you can apply numbers to people. Is it even, can you quantitatively compare people on the same trait dimensions? Instead of, why don't we look at patterns of traits and see how they fit into types? So there may be differences between people, but they're more qualitative. So they're more like difference in kind rather than in differences within a trait. There may be specific types of people. Now, there are a lot of challenges with this approach. And I'm going to warn you now, the reason why I left it till the end is, in general, this method is not very effective. It's got some helpful uses, and I'll talk about those, but in general, from a prediction standpoint, not so hot. And it's because there are major challenges with this approach. So how do you find the divisions? How do you decide where to slice the types? Where's the cut point? And how do you show that those differences are qualitative? These are all really tough questions. Now, I'm going to illustrate how you can see this problem. So if we were in class, I would ask how many of you are familiar with Harry Potter, and I would hope that many of you would say yes. And those of you that looked at me with blank stares, I would tell you it's a marvelous book series or movie series about kids becoming wizards. And early in the book, you are, each kid is sorted into one of 4 houses. That's going to be their home for the next 7 years. So this is going to be your dorm for the next 7 years. So it's a pretty high stakes thing. And what they do is there are 4 houses and they all have various characteristics. And the sorting hat's task is to sort you into one of these 4 houses. And I encourage you to read this. The sorting hat is struggling, so difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see, not a bad mind either. So courage would put him in Gryffindor, but Harry Potter, who's under the sorting hat in this, also seems to be smart, which would put you in the Ravenclaw category. He's also talent, which as well as but also a thirst to prove himself, which would put him in Slytherin. So where do you put you? Where do I put you? Where, any of these 3, you could make the case. That's a really hard ask to, because if Harry's put in Slytherin, then all the information, all of that personality information about how he's also brave and, smart is just lost. If all we know about Harry is, oh, he's in Slytherin. We don't know that he was on the bubble. And the only reason that Harry's not put in Slytherin is because he, begs the sorting hat not to put him in there. Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin. Okay. And, that's you sure? You're right on the bubble. Okay. Sure. Well, and so apparently Harry was on the bubble between Gryffindor and Slytherin. So it's almost arbitrary which house to be in. And that's the fundamental problem of types, is if there is ambiguity, if there's not an obvious clear category that's unambiguous with any gray area gets lost. But there are some gray areas that don't get lost. So here's one kind of 3-type paradigm with adjustment. So within this one area, you've got 3 replicable types. So we find these types over and over again with other data. So you've got well-adjusted, and that's being adaptable, flexible, resourceful, interpersonally successful, and then 2 types of maladjusted. You've got maladjusted over controlling, and that's being too uptight denies self-pleasure needlessly. It's difficult interpersonally, just a little too tight, and too, like, stick up there. Then there's maladjusted under-controlling. So, too impulsive, prone to crime, likely to just be all over the place and promiscuous, just not making any, like, impulse control, like no impulse control whatsoever. But there's so even with this, where we have these types that are replicable, even maladjusted versus, like, within the maladjusted, like, mega category, under versus over controlling seems to be like a slice point, but maybe there's a continuum under there. So, but here's the fundamental unfortunate thing. Even when you have clear replicable types, those types tend to not be better at predicting behavior versus, like, the quantitative trait score. So if we had a score of, like, well-adjusted versus maladjusted, like, as one continuum, and another continuum of under versus over-controlling, even if people fall nicely into those 4 categories, the raw scores that you have on maladjusted and controlling are more predictive, because there's still differences in between, like, if you're super maladjusted versus marginally maladjusted. There's range and information on that continuum that gets lost with types. And that's the fundamental issue, is you lose information unnecessarily. And, you know, it's fine to, like, categorize yourself as saying, like, you, even for, like, the big 5, like, I say I'm highly extroverted, for the most part. And so, like, I've typed myself kind of by saying highly extroverted or, like, low extroversion. But the raw number underneath there is still exists. Like, because it's not like I'm extrovert or introverted. Like, that information is important, especially if you're on the bubble. So if you are, like, right on the bubble, so you're, like, what the cutesy phrase is, omnivert. So you're, like, say you're on there's a 10-point scale of extroversion, and 5.01 means you're an extrovert versus 4.99 means you're an introvert. Like, the arbitrary difference between those two people is nil. Like, that's measurement error. That's just arbitrary chance of that differences between those two tiny scores above and below the 5. Yet, they get classified as totally different people and totally different types, even though they're more similar to each other than they are to either of the 2 typing categories they're put into. Hence, it's still useful to have the quantitative score. There's a really fascinating history behind, like, the Myers-Briggs and some other type research. So the Personality Brokers book, it's written by an English professor, is really interesting, and highlights the lack of science behind those types. But there are still some uses for thinking about types. It's helpful to give first summary. So to give your summary of a standing on a lot of different behaviors, and it also makes it much easier to think about how traits within one person interact with another person. I see this every semester, where early on students will ask me, oh, what's your type? Or they'll ask each other, what's your type on, like, the Enneagram? And it's really great to watch, because what they're doing, what you all are doing, is you're talking to each other and describing yourselves and using those types as a starting point. So they're great for facilitating conversation, not so hot for predicting long-term outcomes, but great for, like, interpersonal stuff. So I totally get why, like, McKinsey uses them as of last time I talked with my cousin. And, like, actual cousin, not just, like, well, either way should be, never mind. Last time I talked to my cousin, who's, like, whatever the, like, equivalent of partner is at McKinsey, that's what she is. And she's badass. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap this up here. We've just covered a lot about traits. And this episode is going to get, or this lecture clearly I've been watching too much YouTube. I'm channeling them now. So this lecture is going to be sliced up. If you have questions, please shoot me emails, use the message board. I'm here for all that. We'll find out if this jacket was a terrible, terrible mistake to wear for recording. It's cute. It's super cute. But we'll find out. So yeah, that's it for this whole unit. Next time we're going to be talking about personality over the lifespan. So see you then. Bye.